Hello and welcome to the May coffee tasting video where we taste the 3 coffees we're sending out to all our subscribers around the world. Now, if you don't know what a coffee subscription is, it means we send out coffee to you every first Wednesday of the month. And I pick the coffees, so it means you get different coffees every month. And you can subscribe to 1 bag up to 6 bags. You can pause and stop the subscription at any time, and you can also upgrade and downgrade the subscription as you like. Now, I normally pick coffees that I really enjoy drinking, obviously. I mean, all the coffees we buy and sell are coffees that I enjoy drinking, because I'm the one who buys them. But sometimes, you know, some coffees can be a little bit closed when they're fresh, and they open up a little bit after a while. So sometimes we can send the same coffee, for instance, in January, and then we'll send it out later in June, just because it has changed a little bit and maybe opened up a little bit. Now, this is maybe the case a little bit here with the first coffee we're sending out, which is a Kenyan coffee. Now, Kenyan coffees are among the favorite coffees of our subscribers, I know, because we get a lot of feedback from you. And it is coffees that we are quite well known for, because I personally really love to drink Kenyan coffee. Now, we're sending out a coffee from the washing station called Karogoto. And a lot of you maybe have tasted that before. We actually sent out a lot of Karogoto not too many months ago. But this is actually a different lot. And that's because Karogoto is a washing station in Kenya where a lot of smallholder farmers will sell their cherries to the washing station or the cooperative. And the cooperative will process the coffee at the washing station. And that means when you have a small farm, maybe you only have like 100 coffee trees, you pick the fruit yourself. You go and sell the cherry, and then it's bulked up with other cherries from other farmers, and then they can process the coffee together. Now, this has, you know, some downsides and also a lot of upsides, because when you process a whole lot of coffee like that, first of all, they're very picky on only receiving ripe cherries, and if the farmer comes with cherries that are unripe, they have to actually sort them out before they deliver the cherries. And then the team that processes the coffee are very well trained. And also they can do a lot of grading and sorting during the process. So that means we're only buying the heaviest beans, the largest beans that are hand sorted and so on. So we only buy AAs, that means the larger screen size in Kenya, because every time when I go to Kenya and cup, I was there in February, I cup AAs, I cup the ABs that are a little bit smaller, I cup the pea berries, and 99% of the times I prefer to drink the AAs. They're just more lively, more acidity, more sweetness, more flavor, more of everything. Of course, there are many different coffees to taste, and even a factory like Karogoto can produce maybe 6, 7, 8 outturns of the very best coffees. And we will normally go through them and taste them and then select the ones that we like the most. So we don't buy all the coffees from Karogoto, obviously, because we're a small roastery and they produce a lot of coffee. So this particular lot was actually harvested in December 2021, and that's kind of the coffee that we receive in 2022, and now is at the far end of its kind of lifetime. Now, we would never send out coffee if it didn't taste nice and fresh, and I still think this tastes really, really fresh. And even if you taste a little bit, it can even have a slight savory feel to it, which means not necessarily a greenness, but it's kind of a some people refer to it as a tomato-like flavor. If you don't think of tomato and you think of fruit, then some people like to think of it as rose hips. Some people like to think of it as blackcurrants. You know, Kenyan coffees can have many different flavors. So let's taste this and see how this goes. I love Kenyan coffees. They're so refreshing. This is no exception. Lots of kind of rosehip flavor. The previous lot we had from Karogoto was a little bit more winey, maybe because of fermentation. Maybe it was fermented a little bit longer, who knows, but it tasted a little bit more kind of fermented for me. This one for me is more structured, has a little bit more firm acidity, and tastes a little bit more like this kind of classic rosehip flavor that we get from the Karogoto coffees. Now it's quite high acidity, but also a lot of sweetness and a lot of fruit flavor intensity. So a lot of times customers say they don't like acidic coffee, and then we serve them a Kenyan coffee, which for us it's one of the most acidic coffees we have, and they simply love the coffees because they're so full of flavor. So don't confuse acidity and bitterness because they are two different things. Acidity is more of the sensation when you eat a lemon. You get this kind of tingling sensation in your mouth. And if you eat the lemon peel, for instance, it's quite bitter. That's a different thing. So a lot of people confuse that. And when they say they don't like acidic coffees, they very often, I feel, mean they don't like bitter coffees. Yes, so this is actually the last coffee we have from Kenya from the last year's season. We are expecting new fresh Kenyans to come in a month or two. It all depends on the shipping companies. It's already been shipped, so I have to say that last year was a really, really good year for Kenyan coffees, and this year I think it's even better. We managed to buy really, really nice coffees, and I think for me, Karogoto is very, very safe. We've been buying this coffee for many years, and every year they seem to be able to produce really, really high quality coffees. And that's partially because the farmers are quite well trained, the processing team is very well trained, and so on. So I always look for this coffee and want to buy it every year and kind of follow the washing station. In Kenya, it can be a little bit complicated to buy coffee sometimes because a washing station can decide to change the marketing agent, who are the people who sell the coffee. And there are many different companies who do that. And so I, as a buyer, have to kind of chase the coffees around a little bit just to be able to buy it. So fortunately, Karogoto have been quite loyal to the same marketing agents for some years now. So it's quite easy to go down there and buy the coffees. Cool. So if you enjoy Kenyan coffee, this is an SL28, SL34, Batian and the Ruiru mix. And that's because the smallholder farmers have planted different cultivars on their farms. And we see more and more in these areas, even in the area where this is, that the farmers are planting more Ruiru and Batian because they are more resistant against leaf rust and so on. So the traditional varieties SL34 and 28, it's still there and in plentifulness, but they are slowly getting replaced with Ruiru and Batian. I think this coffee still has a very characteristic fruity flavor that you can expect from these best Kenyan coffees. There are mainly, SL varieties, but you will find some of the other ones in this mix as well. Ah, delicious. Can't get enough of Kenyan coffee. All right, so for the second coffee, we are going across the Atlantic Ocean to a farm called Nacimiento in Honduras. Now we sent out coffee from Nacimiento last month as well, but this is actually a later picking of the same cultivar. So it's a Pacas cultivar, but a much later picking. And it means it normally has a little bit more flavor, and the flavor we get is very often confused as being a Kenyan coffee when we put this on the table, if there are no Kenyan coffees on the table. So let's say we cup this coffee next to an El Salvadoran, a Brazilian, Colombian. A lot of our staff will pick this out and say, oh, here's a Kenyan coffee. And it's not, because it's a Pacas cultivar. It's quite fruity when it's the late harvest. And the fruit flavors are quite similar to a Kenyan coffee, but you can clearly taste the difference when you taste it next to a Kenyan coffee, for sure. Then there's no doubt that these two coffees are not from the same country. I find this to be a little bit more herbal, has a little bit more chocolate flavor, and also this kind of more deep fruit flavor like cherries and like really purple berries. Whereas the Kenyan has a little bit higher acidity, a little bit more rose hippie, hibiscus, that kind of style. This is more of a I think the color purple when I taste, I associate it with things that are purple, purple candy, purple fruit, purple juice, grapes, stuff like that. It's a bit kind of bigger body, I think, than the Kenyan. And also a slight herbal twist that is very, very common in Honduran coffees, I think. But it's not as prominent as the Pacas we sent out last month, which for me was herbalness is a more dominant flavor, whereas here the fruity flavors are a little bit more dominant. So the Pacas cultivar, as I said last month, this is a Bourbon mutation, so a short tree that produces quite well, and it's very, very popular to produce in Santa Barbara, in the mountains of Santa Barbara, where Nacimiento is located. And this is because the Pacas can produce really, really nice coffees there. So Hobnil has planted the majority of Nacimiento, his farm, with this cultivar. Cool. Now the last coffee is a real treat, I think, because this coffee has been quite closed for some time. And for me, at least, the last 2 months has tasted phenomenal. We sent this out actually in December, but it was a different lot. And this is the third and last lot we have from last year's season from the farm Echemo in Ethiopia. Now, this is a washed coffee, the cultivar. I have no idea because Khalid, who owns the farm, he inherited the farm from his grandfather. And his grandfather, when he started the farm, he actually went into the forest, picked coffee cherries and planted on the farm. And I've been to this farm, and when you walk around the farm, you actually don't walk among the coffee trees like you would normally do. You walk underneath the coffee trees because they have just let the trees grow. They never prune them or cut them or anything. So when you pick the coffee, you actually have to climb the coffee tree and stand in top of the tree and pick the cherries, which is quite fascinating. So this coffee is a little bit different than the classical Ethiopian coffees that are normally the 74110, 74112 cultivars. This is a traditional, we call it heirloom cultivars because we don't really know what it is genetically. It still has a lot of this florality, and let's taste it before I say anything more. Oh, it's just so soft and delicious. It reminds me of drinking white tea, where you just have this kind of soft, really nice, velvety mouthfeel. Lots of sweetness. It has a very, very subtle stone fruit flavor and also floral characteristics. It's not necessarily that kind of pungent, jasmine-y floral thing. It's more of a delicate floral note. Kind of reminds me a little bit of coffee flowers, actually. Although coffee flowers are a little bit more pungent as well. So it doesn't necessarily taste like a green tea, but it kind of has the same mouthfeel as a green or white tea. And a little bit of that kind of tanniny flavors you get in slightly oxidized teas, like an oolong maybe. But on top of that, you have this kind of very delicate fruit and floral flavors. So quite a big contrast to the Nacimiento, and also similar to the Kenyan, but also extremely different. Similar because it's quite high acidity and very kind of fruity style, but different because it's delicate and not as kind of punch in the mouth like the Kenyan. Let's taste them side by side again. Kenya, there's no doubt the Karogoto is very much like red fruit, hibiscus, whereas the Echemo, yeah, very delicate, floral, tea-like, super nice. Now, the Echemo is a farm that we have been buying from for some years, and last time we bought, we actually managed to separate different pickings from the new wet mill that they have built. So this is actually the kind of first good production of washed coffees that they did. We're getting more this year. So for me, this has been quite a nice kind of project to follow. And hopefully we'll be able to get even more coffee from Khalid in the future. Khalid is a super nice guy. He wants to preserve the land that he inherited. He is replanting a lot of native trees to make the coffee trees grow under shades, and also to preserve the land and also the environment. So he's really on the right track and producing some high quality coffees, and I really hope that we can get even better coffees from him in the future years. Cool. I brewed these coffees as AeroPress. It's quite easy. We have an AeroPress recipe on our YouTube channel. I think that's a good brewing method for these coffees because it really brings out the flavor characteristics very easily. Even if the grind isn't perfect, a lot of people ask us about grind size and so on. It's so hard to recommend because grinders are different, coffees are different, waters are different, techniques are different. So it's really difficult for me to say how you should grind the coffee. In general, if you feel like our coffees are a little too thin, don't add more coffee, but grind a little bit finer. So on an AeroPress, we would use 7 grams to 100 grams of water. So our standard recipe is 14 grams to 200 grams of water. And if you feel that is too thin and watery for you, that means you're grinding too coarse. If you feel that it's just way too savory and thick and bitter, maybe you're grinding a little bit too fine. And also you can feel it when you press the AeroPress. If it's too hard to press, you're probably grinding too fine. if it's super easy to press, you're grinding too coarse. So this is kind of how you do it, and you have to kind of taste a little bit back and forth to see what's working. And the same goes for a V60 or a filter brew or whatever. If the coffee is a little bit too watery, maybe you're grinding way too coarse, for instance. Cool, I hope you enjoy these coffees, and I hope you enjoy them, drinking them during springtime. And if it's really, really hot, you might want to chill the Karogoto or the Echemo down. And then you just put the coffee in the fridge, and then maybe you'll add a little bit of honey or sugar or a slight sweetener and pour it over ice. It's gonna taste fantastic. We also have an iced coffee recipe if you wanna check that out. We can put a link below maybe. Let me know which one of these you preferred, and also which is your favorite coffee. And is there any coffees you would like to see that we haven't sent out lately? Then please comment below. And remember to subscribe to our coffee. Hope to see you next time. Have a nice May.